This episode may contain graphic language and descriptions, nicotine use, and may not be suitable for younger audiences. Opinions expressed in this episode are of the minds and experiences of the participants and do not represent those of any other people, organizations, groups, or recovery-based fellowships that may be mentioned. We speak only for ourselves.
God bless you. We love you, and we hope you hear something that helps you. Thanks for listening. Interesting. I just could never see Delco being a high tax area, except maybe like Havertown, I guess, if it was going to be anywhere.
Or Swarthmore, dude.
Swarthmore's got some houses. Yeah, I used to do some properties out there when I was working outside. Yeah.
They got that wicked liberal college there.
You wicked liberal. God, dude. What college isn't, though?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. So here's a winging it episode, I guess.
Love it, dude.
We're kind of time crunched, doing it not really last a minute, but yeah, I've asked some more people to be on, and none of them could do it this weekend, so we're just gonna see what happens. Episode six, I believe. Yeah. So we're doing the damn thing. How's your week, dude?
Pretty good, man. Just busy as fuck with this vacation. Trying to finish up all my accounts, get all my stuff in order.
Yeah, dude.
It sucks having a job where, like, when you're out, nobody's doing shit for you.
You need to prep for when you leave. Yeah, mine, somebody just slides into my spot and starts using the tools that I'm using. So
I'm jealous, dude. It's the same for Lauren, though. It's like, gotta have all your stuff done because, like, your team will help you, but they got all their own shit to do.
Oh, yeah, you are most likely the... not the primary, like everything backing you up is probably not their primary focus. Yeah. Nor should it be, honestly, because everybody has their own shit to worry about. And I can't use you as an example because you and I are close, but if I was in that position and another coworker was out, I would focus on finishing a lot of my stuff first before I was just like, let me make sure, I'll put some effort towards it, but I'm not going to wake up being like, okay, got to get all that stuff done, this stuff done, and then I'll do my stuff. That's not how that would go.
It's just funny, man, because it's like, I'm not important, but I have ownership of a workload. I remind myself, yes, you're the owner of these accounts, but remember, you're not that important. Right. But you do have ownership. Your name is attached.
Dude, I just went through getting my my benefits sorted out for my job. Dude, the union benefits are crazy. They're crazy.
Tell me about these union benefits.
So I chose to get the PPO plan just for like flat copays, because otherwise they were percentage based, and I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'd rather just know what I'm paying when I'm going in there and pay more per paycheck. Mm-hmm. I know I'm gonna be happy about that whenever I have to go do it, so I'm just gonna do the sacrifice now.
So does that mean you're full hire now?
Yeah.
When'd that go down?
Maybe a month ago.
Fucking congratulations,
Thanks, dude.
Man.
I appreciate you.
Yo, that's big, dude.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be paying fees and all that then?
Yeah, dude. The fees are like $12 a paycheck. They're like nothing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was higher because it goes into like a pension or something.
Sorry. Our mutual friend that we were speaking of wants to meet during the week instead. So my day freed up a little bit. That's nice. Yeah, I haven't talked about I haven't looked into like the 401k or the pension or anything like that yet, because all of this stuff is like, especially union wise, like focusing on all of that is new to me. Like, even at RCA, I didn't really care that much. I was hired as a housekeeper. Like, I was more so worried about the fact that I was demoralized and scrubbing toilets of people that I'd been constipated for the last 30 days, sniffing perks, than like what the fuck my retirement was going to look like. Which I have a wicked story about that. Like, maybe one day I'll tell it, but like it involves like gloves and like a trash can over me and hands and a toilet. And it was definitely the most humbling experience I've ever had.
Now imagine doing that, what you just perfectly described, in a fucking Dexter's Laboratory suit in the midst of COVID.
Bro, I'm glad I wasn't, because like, is that what the housekeepers were wearing during COVID? I don't even
They
remember
had
that.
to go into the quarantine sections behind the screens.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
I think I do remember seeing Jess and all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so the PPO plan is we have like wellness discounts where like if you reach a certain goal of points in some wellness tracker system that they have, your coverage is discounted. So and I got automatically enrolled into that somehow. So right now my PPO coverage is $55 a week.
Good shit, man.
Like flat like $10 co-pays for like primary care doctor visits. And I think the highest copay I saw was maybe like 25.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gives me a little bit of hope for the American medical system.
Well, as long as you have representatives that'll be like, yo, like we will literally take all of your workers out of here. Unless like I don't know if that's really what union members do. I just always have that like strong arm kind of viewing it. Dude, and the port. You see all that shit that happened with the port?
Nope.
The port workers were on strike for I'm going to butcher the length, but like a month and a half maybe.
Oh, yeah, I do.
But like I was looking into like how much they make. They make a lot of them already make like I don't want to say a lot of them and I don't want to like misrepresent the issue, but like they make fucking great money, dude. Working longshore. You know what I mean? Like longshoremen like having gotten sober in South Philly around like every trade guy you could imagine. The longshore is like not a small deal. It's like a very big thing to get into. It's like once you got there, like you were fucking set forever. Like, and people think that about unions in general, but the longshore and the port especially. And
I'd probably peg them without knowing shit about it, like $40 to $50 an hour. At once you reach like full rank or whatever it is.
I think full rank is well into six figures, I believe, like between like 100 and 150. But from what I heard, and again, like if anyone's listening to this and wants to correct me or whatever, they were asking for like a more than half pay increase. That's a lot of money, dude. That's a lot of money, especially to like hold like one of the biggest ports in the country, you know, like all the northeastern ports, especially just the eastern seaboard to begin with, like, and ask for a 50% pay increase when you're already making like more than the average middle class household, I would say. You know what I mean? I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
that was wild to me.
Like, what must go into that, dude, is just beyond me because they already make well above market average for anybody in the private sector of their same trade. So there's shit I don't know, man. Yeah.
But they knew what they were doing though, because they started it like right before the holiday season, and they were like, "Yo, dude, like, y'all want your little Christmas presents or whatever from Temu in China or wherever the fuck you're getting them? Like, you better give us our bag, dude." I will credit that. Like, they were smart with how they did it.
Yeah, dude, they know their role, man.
Yeah.
They know how important transport is.
I can't believe it, dude. I can't believe it. I wish I would have went longshore.
Dude,
Whatever.
Congrats on the promotion, though, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. So we start with like do a little recap of like what we did last time. I guess we'll just do. Well, we can't really do 4, 5, and 6. So you would have to do like 4 through 7. That's what you said, right?
That's
You said
always
4
how
through
I
7.
put them together, dude,
Yeah.
but I'm open. I'd love to just dive into you. I'd love to dive into you. I'd love to dive with you into like this whole moral inventory that this whole song and dance everybody complicates eventually, maybe not today.
Oh, 4. I would love to jump into that, especially because I was just talking to Tyler at the home group, right, about it. And what I saw was like the very thing that I feel like a lot of people experience, which is just all of a sudden, all of these people that tore apart their families and tore apart themselves, wrecked every job they ever had potentially, and did all of these things, lived life very fallible and not really caring as long as they got what they wanted, all of a sudden are perfectionists.
Yep.
And it's a weird thing that like the mind slips into, and I don't know if it's because like I mean I don't know if you want to just dive right into it. but it's just this weird mindset that like I definitely slipped into, where it was just like, I don't want to mess this up. And I don't know if it's because somebody else told me to do it and I was afraid of disappointing, like Kim, for example. Um, but all of a sudden, I like, until she pointed that out to me and other people pointed it out to me, I realized like I'm trying way too hard with this. Um, because it was my understanding that if I missed something, I could relapse again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that and I don't know if that was necessarily blaming I don't know if I would blame like the vocabulary or like the dialogue of anybody else that were in the meetings, but that's definitely where my mind arrived at.
Yeah, dude, I think that what I observe with people and looking back at my own experience is that people they don't want to sign up for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is like, and I don't even think people realize this. I know I didn't. Like, so if I do a house cleaning, meaning that I go inside and look at where I am getting in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I go into my head, I go back through my life, I look at my behavior, I look at my thinking, a little bit of my feelings,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like people don't necessarily know how to sign up for the fact that like this is going to be an ongoing and continuous process.
Yeah.
And it doesn't negate the importance of the first one,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think people are looking for like this amazing cleansing and feeling of just wholeness
Yeah.
that in my experience they're likely not going to get all at once.
And if they do, it's not going to be while they're writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be when they're talking about it.
Yep.
That's like when my came, like when I left. So like just to like bring everybody up to speed or whatever, do a little recap real quick. Like we talked about steps 1, 2, and 3, like forgiveness, open-mindedness, or I'm sorry, surrender, open-mindedness, and willingness. Basically, were like the first 3 principles, right? And like now we're doing this fearless fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves. And like the way it goes is uh the most popular way is you're given these sheets with like all the columns splayed out. I forget who designed those. um it's written on like the top of them somewhere, I think, like where it came out of. And then we're going through like resentments, like people that we have ill feelings towards. What helped me a lot was writing down people that annoy me. Like really helped me like get quite a few pages down. And then like fears, sexual misconducts, harms you've done to others, all that kind of stuff. Um, and now I lost the original thing. I lost where I was transitioning into. What were you talking about before I started talking?
Just this like this quick fix, this like
Oh yeah,
cleansing and
yeah.
not wanting to jump into like a long haul of continuous effort.
Yeah. So like when I was going through the fourth step, the damned and feared fourth step, right? That everybody just makes so much of a fucking mountain out of. And I don't really blame people for doing that. I did the same exact thing. But now in hindsight, I think there's better ways to carry people through this. Than I've experienced on for the most part in the rooms. But again, not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything. Like I just have opinions. But
Yeah, dude, and I think like I think that it's so different depending on the group and the rooms that people are in to hear about it. Cause like
it's like a meeting culture thing
it
for
is.
sure. Yeah.
Like so my first 4 steps we're gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why this was, but my sponsor had this effortless ability to not allow me to complicate them.
Yeah, you talk about this all the time.
And
Yeah.
it so deserves like 10 more, dude.
Oh, for
Because
sure. Yeah, I
you
love
know,
hearing about this guy.
it's like it's so like steps 1 through 3 and like the realization and the acceptance of those, right? That we talked a lot last time about getting in our way, trying to run the show. Well, like step 4, you know, I love how a lot of AA literature and
Mm-hmm.
other literature around recovery talks about this idea of, and here's $1 million question for anybody trying to get after long-term sobriety. Yo, what disturbs you?
Mm.
What really disturbs you?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you boil down, and this could be a whole nother huge topic, why people go back out.
Mm-hmm.
The simplest thing I can say, going right back to the doctor's opinion, is they get disturbed again.
Yeah.
And their mind tells them there's no other solution at a certain point. So, like in steps 4 and 5, if I start looking at what disturbs me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make incredible headway to grow and move towards some kind of freedom.
Right.
But doesn't mean I'm not going to be disturbed.
Yeah. And that's very much using verbiage from the acceptance passage on 417, because that's what it says. It's like when I'm disturbed, it's because I'm going to butcher it, of course, even though I've read it a million times. I'm finding some person, place, or thing unacceptable to me, and I can't find peace or serenity until that thing is like exactly the way I want it to be, or something to that effect.
Yeah, dude, like just giving you like just giving us like a snapshot of a couple things you could talk about, right? And this is like on a whim. What did you identify as like 2 or 3 of your biggest disturbances? And now this could have been when you were doing steps 4 and 5. This could have been in the weeks and months after, as you really plugged into this. Like, what were 2 or 3 of your big disturbances?
They all definitely follow the trend of me, like my factory setting being one that is always judging. And I think it like that's like a big thing to hint for people, even though that sounds kind of obvious when you hear it. But it was a lot of people that acted in ways that I just deemed to be unacceptable. A lot of people that acted in ways that I deemed to be wrong, even though I was not anywhere near acting right. As far as like resentments go, I don't really think I can. It's hard for me to specify it more than that. Just people that acted unacceptably to me, people that what's highlighted in the columns is people that hurt me in different ways and affected different parts of me, which I didn't know before. Whether it was, now we would call it like humbling experiences, but at the moment, like my pride was very much at threat, or threatened, I guess. And then I acted in retaliation to that, which I didn't know until it was explained to me. Which, like, all of this I didn't know until it was explained to me. Yeah, it was kind of just that, like, people whose behaviors, like, I observed that didn't line up with how I think they should act, based on standards that I hold other people to, but not myself. And people that affected me with those actions, like, in ways that just were so deep that they just stayed in my mind like forever.
So coincidentally, that was one of my biggest takeaways too, right? You don't act right. You should know better and do better, but and yes, I do the same shit, but I have reasons and you don't.
Yeah, my God complex was revealed throughout that whole thing. Yeah. And you know it while you're writing. Like, you could say it.
Yup. Yeah, like, dude, I feel like one of my biggest takeaways from looking at fear and resentment primarily was I was just a runner, dude. Like, I was somebody, kind of still am somebody in progress on this, right? That just didn't want to accept life at face value and take on the challenge. Like, I don't want life to force me to face things I don't feel like facing. So if it's a boss or a girlfriend or a parent or anyone that kind of forces me to look at something, I don't think I should have to do it, right? Like, I have reasons why I don't need to take responsibility in this area, and you should get that.
Yeah, and I very much think that's like, as I've alluded to before, like the ego being like a separate personality and stuff, like within you, which is like a lot of things that like Carl Jung wrote about. But in that instance, like now I can very much separate myself from my ego in that particular situation and say like, okay, my ego is kind of going into fight or flight for itself and trying to put up like defense mechanisms in order for it to stay alive. That's like one of my biggest like takeaways from doing that whole process is just If you think of, if I mean, after thinking about it deep enough for me, I was able to distinguish what thought processes were um, attributes of my ego and not necessarily who I am when I'm not running on ego.
So you were able on some level to see the difference between the two, like real you and ego you, and how much that ran the show.
Yeah. Well, in order to judge, I believe like in order to judge, you are by default and can't do it without it, like taking a stance of lesser than or better than. And ego is present in both of those. So like and once like going through the fifth step, and I'm just speaking towards like resentments, like just strictly right now, um, being shown like, okay, all these people that like I deemed whose actions were despicable in my mind was like a word that like I would use a lot. I never once considered like maybe they're doing the best with whatever they have, like whatever tools they have at that moment. Like, excuse me, and like that's all I was doing. You know what I mean? And like once I started getting better and wanted forgiveness from other people, but was still hesitant to give it to others, I had to like that connection was made in going through the fifth step and sharing all these secrets with another person. Where like I was holding other people to standards that I was holding other people to standards that I could never reach myself. And I would say, well, I'm not perfect, so I can't attain those. But I would never put that margin for error on other people in order to show them forgiveness and love. And that was something that struck out to me a lot. Was pretty much my whole life I was acting as if I was God, right? And that's not, I wasn't walking around thinking like I'm the supreme being and the Messiah. But if I look at my actions objectively and characterize them, I was very much acting as somebody that believed they were like the end all be all and the judge and the jury, all that shit. And it wasn't a conscious thought in my mind, but that's what my actions characterized.
It's like a huge right sizing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because pretty much literally everything you just said was a big part of my experience. The doing the best they can with what they have. I got asked that over and over again.
Yeah.
Another question I got asked that really fucked with me, and it's genius, is so I would lay out these big justifiable reasons for my resentments. And my sponsor would look at me and say, "Are you sure about that?" Dude, like by the fifth time he asked me that, I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I'm sure about that.
There's that meme now of God, I forget his name, but the guy that does the I Think You Should Leave show. Do you know who I'm talking about? I think his name is like Tim or Tom something. He used to be involved with SNL a lot, and he started his own sketch comedy kind of show. And like the meme goes around of like, let's say like if somebody put up like the real people to blame for like the Eagles downfall are like all of the players and nothing on the coaching staff. You know what I mean? Like if somebody put something out like that right now, the GIF would be like playing on that text with audio of this guy being like, "You sure about that? You sure about that?" So not to get totally sidetracked, but that's where my mind went. But
No, dude,
I love the question.
Well, because like you've talked a lot about it in the last couple times we've sat down, right? This realization that I am wrong. I'm just wrong.
Yep.
And that question, dude, is this subtle little jab that gets me to realize that. And what's so crazy about it is I feel like the context that I was asked that question was my perception of other people. My mom did this or that, and my dad never wanted or did this or that, right? And it kind of showed me my perception of other people and also myself was completely skewed.
Right.
And one of the definitions of resentment is the perception of unfairness. Right? So like by seeing that my whole like complicated story of me and you is wrong.
Right.
it right sizes shit. Like
Yeah.
it creates that humility that we talk about.
It's just weird. It's almost like you can feel your levels bouncing out in your brain, like while you're having this conversation. And it's not it's like, to me it was negative in a way where it was the same thing as if you like if I like woke up out of a blackout and like saw like all of the fucked up shit that I was consciously doing last night, but realized like how much fucking turmoil I had caused. Like it was a very similar thing for me. Um, Not like where I was ready to like stick a knife in my throat or anything like that. It was very a very sobering like realization. It was almost like I had finally arrived in like reality. You know what I mean? And just like that weird like hazy cloud of like what I thought was what the world was and everybody else that I was partaking in and living in up until that point. It just all like dissipated. And then all of a sudden like I see things and people for what they really are. It was a wild experience, dude. And like I think what I was going to say earlier before I lost track was when I like it wasn't like a big white light kind of moment or whatever, but I 100% left Kim Package's basement where she used to do all of her like individual like therapy sessions. Um I basically did my fifth step like on the quintessential like I'm sorry, not recovery, like therapy chase, where like you lay back and like go like this. I don't remember if I ever did the lay down thing, but then like she sat a chair across the room and like did her thing. She's incredible. But I remember leaving there with definitely with like a new pair of eyes on, like spiritually. And I was definitely not the same person that walked into that basement at all. 100%. Like I don't know how much. I mean, I wasn't a brand new person, but I was. I don't know, man. I felt a perspective shift, and I felt like I had waken up to something. And while it arose a lot of guilt and shame, as I think it should, because I think that's a test that you need to climb over, and I don't think we deserve to not feel bad about all that shit. Like we did it. I deserve some kind of like spiritual repercussions for that, but they're not permanent, and that's an important thing. But like aside from like the shame and guilt, dude, I felt very proud and very excited to see like what other doors can be opened that I never knew were there, because I had just walked through one that I never fucking knew existed coming out of that thing, dude. It was wild.
Dude, it's just crazy to like picture, and I love that I can do this from experience, right?
Mhm.
Because we've both like worked the steps and
Yes.
experienced them and practiced them, but like just picturing and like feeling that shift that I had too. Like, dude, I left, and now I had multiple sessions of this, right? But I left the experience with all the evidence I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think looking back, the evidence was the me God that has been running the show up until now is a complete idiot, right? But important distinction, and you hit on this. Doesn't mean I'm a complete idiot, but it's that presence in my thinking and ultimately my behavior that thinks that its take on shit is right, and it's not, dude. Like
No.
one of the ways it was posed to me was step 3 is where we begin to make an effort to stop playing God. Steps 4 and 5 are written, tangible evidence of what you as God look like. How are you doing as God? Well, I run from everything. If you don't act the way I want, I'm pissed at you. I'll hurt you eventually, and I'll justify it all the while, right? So it's like I almost feel personally like by seeing how inadequate my judgment on everything was, that other guy, call it spirituality, call it real me, whatever you want, actually like stood up a peg and really like woke up a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Because if there's this presence in my life and my thinking that I've built a whole lifetime, and I now see how just fucking wacky that guy is, right? He never gets it right.
No, he doesn't.
You know, dude, I think that the best way I can really like summarize it is all the evidence that I got out of that experience, I was able to start trusting something that wasn't that. It was people who had really worked this thing, the importance of a higher power. Dude, I mean, hours upon hours of evidence and written down on a piece of paper. Like, you as God equals complete despair and drugs and alcohol and other things.
Go figure, dude. And it's what's crazy is like the fact that I never foresaw that being the result of writing all these things down. And like that's why, and like I want to like segue this into like actually like writing the thing, because I think that gets a lot of people. I mean, so many people relapse on the fourth step. Like whether they say, they go into the meetings and say like they're working on it. Some of them are to like way too far of an extent, right? Like our experience the other week. And some people don't do it at all. But this is when not knowing how broken I was until I started fixing myself came into play. That was a burning bush moment for me when I was like going through this. Was like, I knew I was at that point, like I know I'm a drug addict. I know I'm an alcoholic. I know there's some things that I might have to apologize for, but I had no idea that my thinking was this fucked up. I had absolutely no idea I had this much shit to work on. And that might seem scary to people, but bringing it to light is way better than walking around with it. And I sat on my first fourth step for a while. I would be very like phases with it. And like I would write a little bit, got the obvious ones down out of the way that were always in the forefront of my mind, and then would stop. And when I would stop writing, I would also stop going to meetings. And then before you know it, I was just depressed in a recovery house again. And that happened like 3 or 4 times maybe before I finally got it done. But like one day, the one thought that for whatever reason like went through my mind, like I was still praying and all that stuff, but just I was being very complacent with my sobriety. The one thought that always got me to do it and like follow through with the rest of it was, do I think I can walk around, and I was 22 at the time, or 23 maybe. Do I think I can walk through the rest of my life content with everything that I've been carrying around up until this point? And I had already felt like my shoulders were so heavy. I was so burnt out when thinking about how long I've been thinking about all the things that I've been thinking about. Like whether it was like my resentment towards my father, or my resentment towards this job before, or this fear that I have, or this insecurity that I'll never be anything and that I'm not good enough. Like all of that shit that like popped up in my head from time to time. I sat there and I was like, can you live potentially another 50 years with all of that shit on your mind? And I was like, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like worst case scenario, this whole fourth step thing doesn't work. And I just have to find something else. But that was a very, very major driving motivator, was because I didn't want to live the rest of my life dealing with all of this shit. And then I arrived at this point where it was just like, dude, it's just like about time we dealt with this. Everybody has those things that have been in the back of their mind, whether it's like trauma or characterizations of yourself and other people. Everybody has that like I guess 1 to 10 things maybe that are just always pop up in their mind from time to time. And they always just go back down or thrown on the back burner. And I was just like, dude, it's finally time to just fucking deal with this shit.
See, like as I hear you say that, my total opinion on that question you asked yourself, I'm going big here, dude. that is some kind of divine influence right there. Because like, I don't know, dude, like that's a pretty existential question, right?
I tend to lean that way just
Yeah,
by default.
like not you know, I know that that's like a big jump to take here, but dude,
Yeah.
my version of that was I had this feeling before I started writing, and I remember it sounding something like this. You're gonna find something in here you need to know. So
Hmm.
write.
Hmm.
Like I don't think I really looked at like I don't think I knew how sick I was for
Right,
starters.
right. I don't think anybody really does.
But like I it makes sense to me that some of that stalling that you said you did
Mhm.
helped you see how sick you were. Like you got to see a past pattern, right?
Yes, I got to see like back to back in repetition, doing these things good, doing this stuff, not doing those things bad. Like based on my experience in day to day and like with my brain. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and so you have like I really think that we can both relate that like there's some kind of influence that throws this out there, right? And for me, so kind of to shift topics to the writing as
Hmm.
well, right? My biggest struggle as someone that guides people through steps 4 and 5 is just getting them through it.
Hmm.
That's really it,
Yeah.
right? And it, you know, I've a lot of times thought like, well, what is the best way? And I've struggled with that because everybody's different, right? But like I personally notice, and big book step study people would really disagree with me on this. The low and slow, couple names, couple things a night
Hmm.
does not work well for most of the people I work with.
I I definitely tried that. And I mean some nights was way more than others. There's some nights where I would get pages done and then stop. Um but and then I mean I'll get into this after after whatever you're about to say, but eventually I just went on too long. That's what hindered me in the end, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, like so for some reason, when I did my fourth, I actually sat down and wrote the whole thing in 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
And I'm in no way saying that's the only way, that's the way it needs to be done, but like back to the don't complicate it, dude.
Hmm.
Like in my mind, everything that needed to go on that paper was ready.
Hmm.
There was nothing that needed to be dug for.
Right.
There was nothing I needed to ponder or sit on. It was like I'm just gonna sit down at this dude's kitchen table with a belly full of pasta and gnocchi, fresh out of jail,
Nice.
and I'm not getting up until this is done.
Hmm.
And like for me personally, that was such an opportunity to not overthink.
Hmm.
It was just like I wrote down everything I can think of, and that's it. We're not gonna like let this stew or wait or come up with more names.
Right.
Like whatever is on my mind right now is going on this paper, and that's it.
Yeah, whatever comes to the forefront of your mind when you think resentment are the things that are most affecting you behind the scenes and
Hmm.
like influencing your actions and judgments on other people. Like I arrived at that conclusion like after doing mine. And seeing how many other like going through the list and just thinking like excuse me, like how long I had been. So it was like it was laziness for sure, procrastination, and there was definitely fear that went into me like taking as long as I did, but a lot of it was also like, dude, if I leave something out here, like I don't want to do this wrong. Like, what's gonna happen if I leave something out? There's all these like, there seems to be this whole new world of like spiritual action and consequences that like my brain is now operating in, like that new fourth dimension reality or whatever. And I don't know what's gonna happen if I leave something off, and like I'm afraid of that. And then eventually I think it was Kim. It may not have been, but I think it was that said like you just write down like whatever comes to mind. And like if you the best advice I'd ever gotten, which I gave to the gentleman at our group, which was just like if you find yourself like digging down really deep and trying really hard to think about something, stop. Just stop.
Hmm.
And like this is not a thing where like the the 12 steps is not a process that's gone through and completed and then it's done. It's like a constant like interwoven kind of like embodiment that now it's like a framework that exists in like how we perceive and go through reality now. It's not like you done it, put it on the shelf, and if you left something, oh well, you're left with that sickness for the rest of your life. It's just like, dude, let's get the big shit out now, and then if you think of something else down the road, like unless both of us are dead or one or both of us are dead, like we'll fucking deal with it when you think about it. Mm-hmm. Like it's not this whole mountain that you have to take on at once. And I'm forever grateful for that advice. I'd probably still be writing it, dude, like 7 years later.
Dude, I couldn't be more grateful that I had whatever desire to just get it done and out and on paper.
Yeah, good for you, dude. Yeah.
And I don't know if I was really directed that way, but like, let's do a little JP commercial break because we always do, right? Jordan Peterson. You ever hear those videos where he says, if you really want to know something that is getting in your way and blocking you, sit on the edge of your bed and ask yourself, what incredibly stupid things am I doing that are blocking my goals, right?
Oh, this motherfucker, dude.
And like he says something like, your head will tell you.
Yeah.
You will get an answer.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm a big believer of that with the steps. Like, maybe, I don't know, man. Maybe if there's some trauma or something else to work out. But generally speaking, the big shit, like you said, your head is going to tell you what you need to know in that moment, in that stage of your efforts. Mm-hmm. It's not going to say like, well, there's this huge fucking thing, but we're going to wait 3 months to bring that to the surface.
Yeah.
Like if you earnestly want to get better and try this step, there's the thoroughness I believe they talk about. Your head's going to throw something out there, man.
Yeah.
You're going to probably write down the name. You're going to probably bullet point what bothers you.
Yeah.
And I just think like part of it is just to sound so cliche, trusting the process.
Absolutely.
Because I got to say, like, years into recovery now, just one guy's experience, like, I have not had to super dig for my problems. Mm-hmm. All I've had to do is just, like own the chapter that I'm in and just let things show me what needs to be worked on at what time.
Yeah, if I'm not fighting myself, I know what the fuck's going on. I know. Mm-hmm. I've always known. And that's just the way it is. I just, like, at that point, I'm just at, like, the crossroads. And it's kind of like a shit or get off the pot moment. It's like God, and this is another thing that helped me, was, like, I was clearly presented with an opportunity to go through this process surrounded by a very supportive community of people who are well established and well experienced in dealing with these kind of things and going through the process and the spiritual nature and all that stuff. And like, am I going to carry this with me again? Am I going to again, like, spit in the face of, like, it's like somebody finally put like a mirror up to me, right? And am I going to fucking look at it or not? Finally. And like, that was a big word for me. Is like finally, let's just deal with all this shit, because my solution is gone now. Heroin's gone, pills are gone, Xanax is gone, nitrous is gone, fucking keyboard cleaner is gone, like all the fucking shit, dude. Alcohol, all of it is not here anymore. What am I going to do instead when all that shit pops up in the future? Squeeze really hard, lock myself in a closet? Like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what am I going to, like, throw myself into sex or gambling? Like, what am I going to do? And I thought about that as well. And I'm glad you mentioned JP, because naturally I was thinking about something that he said. And he, well, I'll just say it. So he says the thing, I need to get his verbiage right though. The thing that you most want to find or need to find, he says want or need there, I forget which one he says, will be found in the place where you least want to look. And as soon as I heard that, I just, immediately it was just like, you dickhead, you asshole. And then right after he says that in whatever clip I saw it and was like, and you hear that and you're like, well, yeah, of course, but nobody does it. Like everybody still thinks like life and like bettering yourself is supposed to be this like yellow brick road into Oz, and like that's just not the deal, dude. Like, and then he brings in like the Taoist yin and yang and stuff, and like I'll talk about, maybe we'll dive into that on like another day, but like now I understand that, and everybody in AA, I think, should be able to identify with that, and it's a law of like metaphysical reality as far as I'm concerned in the spiritual world, and navigating within that perspective of like if you're having, like, how many people go to meetings because they're having a bad day, right? And not saying that's the only time they go, but they know that here's my experience, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. If I'm all like fucked up on like some day or whatever, the last thing that I personally want to do, not that I don't do it, but the last thing I want to do is be a corny spiritual dude about it. That's the last thing that I want to do, right? But I want peace and serenity and freedom and wisdom when looking at the situation that I'm presented with, and I have to do what I don't want to do in order to get that. And it's the same exact concept for the fourth step. Yeah.
Dude, I love like that. I'm picturing the video you're talking about, and I'm picturing some of the examples he uses, right? The dragon and the gold. You know, like the monsters that guard like whatever like I don't know if it's some kind of like you know, ancient town or something like that.
Probably a lot of biblical references is what he always goes to. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, like what I think's so important to say on that though, this is my belief, is like that obstacle that you just mentioned, right? Like the thing that you least want to face, or you'll find the thing you want the most and the thing you least want to face. See, what I always got to remember is like that's now. That's not like a future thing, right?
Yeah, it's
So-
nothing you can put off. Like now is very much part of the thing that you don't want to face. Like
Right.
now is a constant characteristic in that.
So if now I got 7 resentments to write down that really bother me, write them down. Like don't wait until, you know, 3 months from now when maybe I have 30 that I've conjured up from the shadows that I think fits the bill for the step.
Right.
Write those 7 down now, and let's get looking at them and trust in the process and just let it evolve as it goes.
Yeah.
You know, and like one of the things about those house cleaning steps, right? Steps 4 through 9, like I used to always tell people this in our old stomping grounds. Dude, there's too much hope in tomorrow. There's too much hope, and I'll get to it eventually. And I just don't think it works that way, man. Like my personal belief on those steps is they're just a beginning, right? So like steps 4 and 5 are considered heavy action steps of the program. To me, while they're incredibly important and I am so incredibly grateful for them, they're just the beginning, bro.
Yes.
I'm going to be highlighting what disturbs me and beginning to have a process in place to look at it as time goes on. The amend steps, you know, steps 8 and 9, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Like, dude, I think a lot of people think that like you're going to be absolved when those steps take place. Not my experience. I simply made a good faith effort beginning to mend relationships.
Right.
There was years of work that came after that to continue to build them up where they are now. It's not like I just sat down with my dad and was like, hey, sorry for, you know, I accept responsibility for embarrassing you, breaking your heart, scaring you to death, taking your money, and your pills and everything else. Are we good now? Yeah, sure, no problem. And no further work was required.
Right.
So like, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say, like, while those steps we're talking about are crucially important, they're not like a graduation of the process.
No.
They're literally a beginning.
And like the purpose for them as outlined by, well, I I forget if the book directly talks about this. Excuse me. But and this is where the G word comes in, right? And like the higher power, the greater spirit, the group of drunks, Mother Nature, Jesus Christ, Allah, Buddha, like whatever the fuck you're gonna call whatever spiritual thing you're deciding to drive with, or even if you're just letting it absolve and know it's not you. You can't connect with that with all of the stuff that you currently withhold within you. And all of that needs to get out. So like, to be corny, the sunlight of the spirit can come in, right? And like if you want like those better inspirations and that easily accessible like contentment and happiness no matter what your situation is, you need to get all of that shit out right now that fights those kind of feelings and mindsets. And I don't think that is, I personally don't think that that's harped on enough. Maybe it's because like you don't really know that until you experience it. That could be a very good reason why. Because I was just like, I don't get it. I mean, initially I was like, I don't know how talking about all this shit with this lady that I just met, even though I was very very like I respected who she was and saw her as like a high status spiritual person, right? Like she had a lot of spirituality about her, not like her status in the whatever. She was somebody I held in high regard and respected her. But like, how is talking to this lady about all these secrets gonna help me? And I don't know why I didn't think it would work, but afterwards, like it was almost like all of the prayers and like meditations I'd been practicing up until that point, like I want to say all hit at once, or maybe were like understood at once. Not like this big burning bush moment where like my prayers came together and I had a vision of God or something, but like I understood what being free and positively like empty meant. I had a lot more room for like more selflessness and less of myself. Ability to think for others, ability to be like ready, willing, and able when it came to my job or like or commitment to AA. And I finally understood the power of just like getting all of it out. And that was something that my ego was convincing me, which I didn't know at the time, but was convincing me all that time that it's just not going to help. And I don't really know why, but dude, just saying all of this stuff. And I didn't die like I thought I was going to. I was like, fucking me, dude. I'm like, oh, I got a reputation. You know what I mean? Like this draw is going to go tell everybody everything. My reputation was shit. Like people did not like me except for like the people that also did stuff that people didn't like. But I was worried about, like Time Magazine doing a spread on me or some shit. And like, but like that wasn't the experience at all. And like when I finally got it out, the power of an outside observer to your own situations was something that I had drastically underestimated. Like I was like, because I'm so involved in these situations, you can't understand it better than I can. But in reality, what it was I'm so invested in this situation and resentment or fear or harm to another person, sexual misconduct. I'm so involved in all of these things that my vision is fucked and I can't actually see what's going on from an objective view. And like that's why the outside critic, I guess you could call it, is so fucking important, dude, because I had been living like my fatherly resentment, right? Again, love the dude to death right now, would take a bullet for him, everything's better now. But that started from a very early age in my mind. My resentment started very early on from my side. And I had lived with it for so long, it just morphed into this thing where it was so complicated that nobody else could understand it. But then I get it out just because, like, why the fuck not? Like, it's not getting better. I'm not getting better with it. Like, let's just fucking deal with it. And all of a sudden now, in like 5 sentences, this lady fucking destroys it and busts it wide open and like opens my eyes to this thing that I've been dealing with for like 17 years up until that point. And I'm like, holy shit. Like I was wrong again, right? That whole time. And that's like, I think like the 5th step is something else that blocks people from doing the fourth step is the nervousness about telling this to somebody else. But it was 100%. Like I would be dead if I didn't tell somebody else about it. Like imagine getting all that out on paper and then just leaving it there and never telling anybody. It's like you never wrote it in the first place.
Dude, so you just gave me a thought that I'm fucking hype about. So you said the outer critic, right? And I think you were talking about like the person who is sitting on the other chair in the step work basement.
Yes.
Who is guiding you in that
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit too about the inner critic.
Okay.
So I've heard these words inner critic thrown in so many 12-step discussions, so many secular spiritual books, so many therapists have mentioned it. And I think it's a really incredible like part of our psyche to talk about for a second, because I think if you look at why an addict or alcoholic or other person who is spiritually blocked, right? Because I know you and I are passionate about keeping this thing open to like anybody who can benefit from it.
Right.
If you look at the inner critic and you look at why people can't feel happy and whole, it's because in my opinion, the inner critic talks too loud. And so much of the experiences that I have show me a version of myself I don't like. So when I go back now and look at my resentments and my fears, why was I afraid of success or a job that was challenging and rewarding? Because it forces me to look at myself and see my inadequacies. Like, why am I so pissed off at the probation officer and the state of Pennsylvania for taking my license for 6 years? It forces me to look at myself and say, you fucking did this.
Well, plus now you can't drink and drive anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you like that, so.
Yeah, like you fucking did this, man. You had the drugs in your pocket.
Yeah.
You showed up to the PO's office inebriated multiple times.
Yeah.
And she was gracious enough to give you multiple chances before she basically told you to kick rocks. So I have this inner critic inside that I don't want to look at. And you know that book that I was showing you that's right behind us that I can't think of the name of, that was apparently published like last week?
That's what the date says, dude. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a print or published, but yeah.
So there's this line in that book that is exactly what we're talking about in a different context. And the book talks about the inner critic, and it says, do you know the only way to shut down the inner critic? Look at it. Yo, it's fucking profound, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
That voice that goes on in our head our whole life that tells us how inadequate we are, how we don't measure up to the world, and therefore we resent everybody for it. We're afraid, we hurt them, we're bitter, right? So if I start looking at that voice in my head that lives in the dark, I don't even know who it is or where it comes from. If I start looking at it, it loses its power. But here's the crazy thing that I think steps 4 and 5 do so fucking well is I need somebody else present to look at it effectively. Like, how many times before you did step 5 did you take JP's advice and sit on your bed and think about how fucked up your life was over the years, dude?
Over the years, a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
a lot.
I can't tell you the number of times I had these coming to God moments in full-blown heroin addiction, where I swore to my innermost self I was going to change, right? Tears, fucking, self-beat down, anger, everything. Couldn't do it.
Nope. With all the motivation in the world, couldn't do it.
But then this dude who has all the best intentions sits with me and helps me to really look at myself and my inner critic, and I get the same free feeling you just talked about a couple minutes ago, dude. So it's fucking nuts though, man. Like, I think the inner critic is a necessary part of us.
Yes.
But if we don't look at it, we'll continue to suffer.
Yeah, I agree.
Dude, like to this day, when I'm scared at work because I know that I need to polish up skills to do something, I need to make a difficult phone call, I feel inadequate, there's a voice in my head that begins to speak to me. and I don't know who programmed him, but he's a fucking idiot. He's wrong every time.
Yeah.
Right?
Now he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he used to be
Yeah.
God. He
Yeah.
used to be right.
Mhm.
But it's crazy, man, how like looking at our inner critic, which is to me the whole essence of steps 4 and 5, completely wakes up like that spiritual thing inside.
Yeah.
That voice that we didn't know was there.
Yeah.
Yo, dude, you just made me real like think of this by saying outer critic. That's fucking awesome.
I don't even know where those. I never read those words or anything. It's just kind of what came to mind. So that was accidental. And you talked about like the reasons for you like blaming other people and like finding them to be at fault and like character assassinating them. In not as many words, but like that's what you were hinting at. And I really think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that and this is another like JP kind of thing, is like I avoided responsibility for me personally my entire life up until I got sober. Like I wasn't responsible for my actions. I didn't have any material responsibility. Any chores that I had around the house were like chores that were done only because I was reminded of them and told to do in that fucking moment. Like I wasn't personally accountable, was not a responsible person. And one of the greatest things that like that he talked about was responsibility. And after I heard that and like started thinking about it more, like that's literally what the program does, is makes you into a responsible person, personally accountable, able to show up for commitments and reliable. Like every aspect of it is just teaching a different form of responsibility within yourself. And like that's the one thing that was completely absent from me and my character for all those years. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing that I was thinking about while you were saying that is I also never really know how other people are feeling inside up until I get into this program, right? Like we could talk about like comparing your insides to other people's outsides. And it's like, maybe everybody looks like they have it figured out. And then even if I see them in a weak moment, they're still not doing what I'm doing. I don't know anything about them. So like I'm worse than they are. Except for people that like I used to run with, you know what I mean? Like I never really held them as doing better than me. You know, like we were in that together. That's kind of why we were in it together. Right. But yeah, I think it's like a combination of never having to take responsibility or never being responsible, for me at least, and never having a firm understanding on how other people viewed themselves. And that's why I always thought that I was the worst. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking victimhood, dude. Yo, like honestly, besides giving me a program to take drinking and drugging out of my life, like,
Yeah.
dude, that's recovery's biggest gift to me. What you just said, like, finally taking responsibility for my own life.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how pain can turn you into such a victim of all different circumstances. Relationships with parents, abuse, trauma, jobs, heartbreaks, breakups, injury, sickness, disease. Dude, like living as a victim who can't take any ownership over why I am where I am is the darkest way to live to me.
Yes.
And I you know, like it wasn't until people started to tell me, bro, you got a hand in everything. You're not responsible for everything that happens to you.
Right.
But you're absolutely responsible eventually for how you respond to it. Like there's this motivational speaker and he says, you know, if you knock me on the ground and I'm laying there, you just knocked me out. That's on you.
Yeah.
Right? You knocked me out. If a month later I'm still sitting there, do I have a part in that?
Yeah.
If a year later I'm still laying there, do I have a part in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's like, yeah, dude, responsibility and like not always placing the burden of proof on people in society, I think is at the essence of like all spirituality, man.
Yeah.
You know?
And if I start to think practically about it, like nowadays, if there's a meeting, like if I purposely don't show up to our home group, not for any good reason, I just don't want to go, I don't have a good time sitting at home, even though I wanted to sit home. sit at home. I just don't, for whatever reason. It's not like I'm beating myself up over not going to the meeting, but like the spiritual repercussions of like avoiding that responsibility, that commitment that I made, I get spiritually punished for that in the spiritual realm. Like that's just what happens. And I never like it takes me a while to associate the two. It's like fuck, maybe I should have just went to the meeting. And like I don't know. I think there's like deep like psychological structures that are like at play with that. And like I call it spiritual, but just because I don't understand it. But and it's another thing that our boy JP says, which he talks about like the God, I'm gonna go on a whole tangent here. He talks about the lobster thing, right? Remember the lobster thing? Where like the lobsters that duel for like alpha status, and whose like very base neurological structures are pretty close to humans, actually. Like fundamentally. We're not lobsters. Lobsters aren't people, but they have aspects of their brain psychologically that work the same as ours. And when a lobster is defeated in battle or whatever, and like they'll like tear claws off and limbs off or whatever, their brain literally like melts and reforms into a defeated brain, into a lesser brain. And then that's what you are. You know, you get no bitches after that. You know what I mean? You're not amounting to anything basically until you beat somebody else, maybe. But like, and I very much think like that's what we go through when we're avoiding responsibility. Like all I did was like I avoided responsibility over and over and over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden I'm just this small little fucking victim feeling bad for myself. No relationship, no healthy relationship prospects. Clearly don't have a path in life. And then in my place in the hierarchy of humans is at the very fucking bottom. Like as a person, as character, you know what I mean? And I've always saw like parallels between the two. It sounds really weird. And I think people hesitate to like take that kind of notion to heart because a fucking lobster is like the foundation for the conversation or for the point being made, but it's like very true. And like, I don't really see how it's not. But yeah, so when it came to like responsibility, like routinely defeating things that I don't want to do or things that I know I should do and doing them anyway, even if I do them poorly, I have to try, right? God loves a trier, which was like a huge line for me in the beginning. Like you get rewarded if you honestly fucking try and don't do all of the avoidance techniques that you've been using in your life up until this point. You start to get more self-confidence. Since you have more self-confidence and now precedence of conquering a task, right? Important or not, something that you have to do and doing things for yourself, especially. You now like have this different aura about you, right? Like everybody picks up on those kind of energies and shit, some better than others. And then you're more ready to attack like bigger tasks in the future and you can do this and that. And before you know it, like you end up like all of the different, very successful recovery people that we know who weren't that person before. And I very much think it's like you're rebuilding from that defeated victim psyche slowly, as we always talk about. I don't know where that started, my whole little tangent fucking thing, but yeah, I very much think like the whole victimhood thing is just like, do you just gotta fucking own your shit? And that was another finally moment, you know? It's like for once I'm just gonna take accountability for this shit and see what happens. Because I couldn't just be fucking helpless anymore. Dude, I couldn't fucking take it. I was gonna blow my brains out. Truly.
Dude, like the emotional experience of what you just said and like getting the gift of being taught how to rise above that. I literally can't put into words how amazing that is.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
like going from victim to level with the help of a higher power and other people. I could sit here for the next like 5 minutes and try to put into perfect words what that feels like, dude. I can't.
I think I would also have a hard time with it. Yeah.
Because like, dude, I just remember how dark it used to look, man. Like the drugs and alcohol and everything that came with that, like, a lot of you and I and a lot of people watching have felt that, right? With nights of withdrawal, taking hot showers to get 30 minutes of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
going to jail, squatting and coughing,
Mm-hmm.
walking miles and miles and miles so
Right.
that I have just enough for another bag and don't
Right.
have to spend the 225 for the train.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's just nuts, man, to think like when you get to that level of responsibility, nothing's fixed, but everything can be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you got to help me out because that's about all I can say on it.
I mean,
man.
dude,
It's
and just to like reinforce its presence in the program is like, what's the home group? What's the home group mantra? Responsible is in within the first three words, dude. Like, that's what it is. And whenever, and like, we talk about these. Hold on a second. The only word that I could probably attribute to what it is like a proper dose of dopamine would probably be the best thing that I could probably attribute it to. And that's just like speculation. Like, I don't know brain chemistry or any of that shit. But all of a sudden, like, I just get this self-confident feeling and almost feeling like a proud parent to myself when I do something for myself that I didn't want to do before, especially when I didn't want to do it before. But even if I come home and I'm happy go lucky and I clean out the litter box, I do the dishes that are in the sink, I take the dog out, play with him a little bit, and like I do all of my shit before I relax, like my mind is quiet, I'm happier, I feel pretty damn good about myself, or at least I don't hate myself. And that, like, I see like what you're pointing at the thing that you can't really explain, and I don't really know what it is either, but like there's something about like being there's just something about responsibility, dude. I don't know what it is, man. But it's crucial. And just one more point, like, do I have another point? No, go ahead. I think I lost my train of thought.
so on your point about you said something like I'm able to feel good about myself and then like act a certain way as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Well, interestingly enough, like there's been a lot of studies in the last like I don't know the number of years. Let's go 20 to 30
Mm-hmm.
about kind of metaphysical energies that we put out into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this guy I listen to his videos. I can't remember his name, and he says authenticity is the most powerful human frequency, even more powerful than love. Like this, the frequency that comes out of a person who's authentic, literally like almost turns heads. It's so powerful. And I guess like putting together a lot of what we're saying, if I'm not taking responsibility for what's in front of me or diligently trying to, I can't put that shit out because I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling like a failure,
Right.
somebody's pissed at me. And the hard part about responsibility is when you start taking it, people start holding you to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, that's a catch 22, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like show your show your fiance, I'm sure you do, some responsibility.
Yeah.
It now becomes an expected norm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit, I was scared of that too. Right? That's probably why
Yeah.
I have so many work fears
Yeah.
to this day, because if I show you, boss and bigger boss and team, that I can stand this level of responsibility, you're not going to accept anything less.
Right.
The responsibility that I demonstrate that I'll commit myself to becomes a norm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. Right? The lesser version of me does not want that. I want to be able to show responsibility on Tuesday, kill it, feel good. You know what though? I'm kind of a victim on Wednesday. I don't want to show it. I'm going to be down here and I want you to accept that.
Yeah.
Dude, it just teaches me a lot about like even the lobster thing, like the version of myself that I show the world is a direct link to how much responsibility I'm taking.
And the more that you take on after taking on some already, the better you feel and the more rich and prosperous, not only materially, your life ends up becoming. That's just a byproduct, but you feel spiritually. It's just like if it's like I have no early on, like somebody told me like, well, you have no self-esteem because you don't do anything esteemable. You're an asshole. You're a piece of shit. Like, and like maybe that was like a little hardcore or whatever. I don't really know. I tend to respect that level of honesty. But it's very true. It's like like why do I deserve to feel good about myself in the beginning? Just like trim all the fucking fat off of it. Like what do I do for myself? It's no wonder I hate myself, dude. I'm constantly putting poison in my body and hurting everybody that I love around me in order to do it. Like if somebody did that to me, I'd rather not know you. I don't know if I'll hate you, but I'd rather not know you.
Yeah, like I don't want you around me, dude. Like off to the next person.
Yeah.
That was me. Like and dude, it's just crazy how well, what was I gonna say? I lost it. I got
Shit.
nothing.
Well, I was thinking about something else while you were talking, and that's like when you demonstrate responsibility, you're given more, and I mean it's I used the precedent of positive consequences that I got from holding responsibility before to propel me into courage to taking on the new ones. That coupled with a faith in a power greater than myself that everything is going to be okay, just like it was on the last one. Even if I didn't do it perfectly, even if I had to be corrected throughout the way, I was making a fucking effort, and apparently that was good enough for my psyche, and it still is, and it always will be, I think. But like I just think like that's just a part of how life is. Like you will always be given tests, whether it comes in the form of like negative consequences of things that you can't control. And in that instance, like you feel good like going to meetings and praying about it, talking to other people because you're taking responsibility for your emotional and mental state and spiritual state. And you're trying in like the metaphysical realm, right? That word that we keep saying because that's what it is. But that's where the positivity comes from that, I think. But like, and I think that that's why. So the overarching line that Jordan gives is the meaning of life is found in responsibility, and like that was there's just something about like holding yourself accountable, taking care of the community around you, being there for your family, doing esteemable acts. All of that is how you find contentment within your life. And I wasn't exposed to him until all the stuff with the riots started like right before COVID, I think, or whenever the George Floyd riots were. And or maybe it was a little bit before that, but I understood what that meant. And it's like it's not necessarily pointing to one thing in my life and saying like, okay, that's my purpose. It's like my purpose is showing up, period. That thing is included in everything I have to show up for. But I find meaning in being reliable and responsible. And that's where I find happiness. And again, like to actually like pick apart like the intangible feeling of having done that is kind of tricky. Like I don't really know how to word it. I just feel like at peace. Like there's just a moment where I'm, I guess, genuinely happy. You know what I mean? Not that I'm not happy, when I'm like looking at my soon to be wife or whatever, but like it's hard to explain.
I definitely understand that connection though, man. And like just to point out like something I've seen and felt on this topic before, and I'm gonna give you a then and a now. I got to admit that the now doesn't always look this way, but when I'm living right, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
When I saw somebody that was more successful than me 15 years ago, as when I lived as a victim and just really spiritually sick, if you were more successful than me, I didn't like you, and you had some advantage that I didn't have.
Yes, you didn't work to get there.
Always, right? if you came into a meeting when I was super spiritually sick and had a fire or a presence about you, it's not because you worked for it. It's because you weren't as much of an addict or alcoholic as I was.
Yeah, your bottom wasn't as low as mine. Yeah.
Right. So the perspective that I had to anybody who I perceived to be better or further along than me was always negative.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at it now on my good days, like so I'm really grateful. Like one thing about working in the type of industry I work in now, like I'm in the insurance industry, probably sounds so boring to most people, right? But when you work for like a big company, you walk around and see all different ranks all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got this person probably makes, whatever, 80K.
Yeah.
This person probably makes 175.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just money, but like when you look at the work that they put in to get there, on my best days, what I'm able to say now is he or she is probably willing to do something I'm not willing to do. And dude, like when you look at like spiritual freedom in recovery or success out there in the world,
Yeah.
it's so easy from a victim's mind to see they have an opportunity I don't have. But I think that for me, more of the truth is they're willing to do something I'm not willing to do. Like, dude, there are so many people who make way more money than I do, not because they're lucky, some of them are, but because they're willing to take extra steps and increase the bar on responsibility. And you know what the truth is? I'm not. Dude, I want to sit on my couch and, stalk fantasy football. And like, I take responsibility, but like you and everyone else, I could up it. I'm working on upping it. But like, man, that realization has changed so much out there in the world for me. Like if I look at a really successful person and I choose to have that mentality, I'm right-sized. I don't love the fact that they're willing to do more than I am.
Right.
But at least when I tell myself the truth about it, I can just, own my chapter and try to keep moving. When I look at them and I say, some negative shit, I'm going back toward the sick direction. And dude, victimhood, man, like I have been the biggest victim with multiple years sober. I'm capable of it on any given day.
Me too. Yep.
And
all these people were willing to do things that you were not willing to do, like just write your fourth step, dude. Just do it, man. Just do it. Like we all did it. Yeah, maybe it's annoying, maybe it's uncomfortable, but like, isn't it about time like we all just kind of started like taking more responsibility for ourselves? Like even now in sobriety, even now with like how we view people in like the fucking political climate, which I just can't escape, dude. I have never been so just ready for like an election season to be over. I swear to God, dude, I'm going to lose my mind. It's just like, and it has nothing to do with like who I support or whatever, but speaking from like a spiritual angle, the amount of blinding that I see done by people's ego and people that I've never really seen act the way that they are is completely fucking baffling to me. It's just almost like the program never fucking existed. And that's not me speaking from like a higher place. I might just be venting a little bit right now, but it's like, I thought we were a part of this and everyone's allowed to make mistakes. We don't have a monopoly on like character defects and slip ups of character, but like what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing, dude? Like I had to remake my Facebook, right? And like I guess we'll like get close to wrapping it up. I've had to remake my Facebook to promote the podcast and like do all the shit with that, because you need to have a page, you need to have like a regular profile associated with the business one or some shit like that. And I accepted I am friends with all these family members and people that I used to know in AA and South Philly and stuff that I keep in contact with very loosely. And right away, my page is flooded with political posts from one side or the other. And I'm immediately having to unfollow, and maybe this is a cop-out for me, immediately having to unfollow fucking family members because they just can't like help themselves. And I mean, I forgive people and all that stuff because I've gotten into that mode with other social issues and shit that arise in the past. You and I used to talk about it all the time, like right before COVID and during COVID. And I was in a really bad spot with all that stuff spiritually. But I mean, eventually I was like, wait a minute, this is no different than anything else that goes through my head. And I'm just so ready. I mean, I don't even know if it's going to end all the tribalism and shit. It probably won't. But like, it's so fucking exhausting.
Dude, the thing that gets me the most about it is like I get angry, very angry for short spurts sometimes.
Yes.
And what makes me even more angry at myself is I'm falling into socially engineered spiritual warfare.
It's a great
It's
a great phrase.
exactly where they want me.
It's a great phrase.
They don't want me. I say they, but it doesn't want me.
Oh, there's a they.
Yeah,
There's a they somewhere for sure.
There has to be, but they don't want me accepting the differences of the other side, whatever that is. Like I just, it's a game that I fall into, and then I hate myself for falling into it.
Yeah, I just
can't wait for it to be over, dude.
And dude, the amount of people that I talk to and they're just like the I knowers, you know what I mean? The I know guy in the program. It's the same exact thing with this. It's like, oh yeah, I know. I don't really do all that shit. And it's like one of the first things I see you post when like you're my friend now on Facebook, which I hate being on to begin with. I detox myself from social media for a fucking reason. And I hate that it's back. But I have to do that to do this, and there's like a sacrifice there, whatever. But like you do it. You do it. You could I know me to fucking death, dude. I knowed everybody to death, but I was still fucking doing it. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, stop doing heroin. Oh yeah, I know. Doing heroin right after the fucking conversation. Like you're doing, oh, I know. I can't be, whatever. Right after you fucking leave. That's what you're doing. Like I just don't get it, dude. I don't get it. But anyway, rant probably not over, but over for now. I can't wait until all of this stuff is over, man. I can't wait. Man. Just like everybody, like I saw a commercial yesterday where it was like, keep who you're voting a secret. And it wasn't paid for by like either party. I think just like general, like people just trying to get people to vote. And I instantly flashed back to when I never fucking heard about this shit. Maybe it was just because of my age, because I was a kid, and maybe this is how it's always been. I don't know that. But like, what the hell, man?
I didn't know that political contention at a high level existed until 10 years ago. I was so in the fucking weeds with politics, man. Like, I don't remember in my teens or most of my 20s anybody getting mad about anything. And I know that's naive. I know they did.
Yeah.
But I just was never exposed to it, man. And now it's very tribal, dude. But like, the end result of it, I think, is another version of victimhood. Mm-hmm. Where like for me, I get upset because of this and that, and it's like, if I just take responsibility for my side, mm-hmm. look at what's right in front of me, and realize that like I talk to my grandma a lot, right? And we have opposing political beliefs. Mm-hmm. She's 90. She just got knee replacement surgery, which I think is fucking wild at 90 years old.
That's nuts. Yeah.
And they didn't want to put her under for anesthesia, so they did it while she was awake.
That's pretty hardcore, dude.
She could hear them, chipping away and sawing and all that stuff.
I could have been doing that with one of the motors I built. That's what the motors are for really? Surgical tools. Yeah. Really?
Wow, dude. But anyway, I talk to her all the time, and I just say, like, a couple times I've said, hey, like, it always works out in the end, right? Like, mm-hmm. You've seen how many fucking political cycles in 90 years. And she goes, it always works out.
That's the point that Madeline and I keep arriving at whenever this pops up.
Mm-hmm. Like, we've always gotten through all of the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nah, dude, I fucking love it, man. Like, I appreciate this conversation. Because,
likewise. Yeah.
Because like it I don't know, it just brought a lot to light for me, and I hope it helps people like do responsibility.
Yeah, man, just stop. It's not a big deal. you're not going to uncover or reveal anything to somebody else that they haven't uncovered about themselves before. I think that might be something that we glazed over, just to like try to wrap it up real quickly, is like, I did that too. I did that too. That I thought just the same way. I heard that over and over and over again. You're not unique. You're not fucking special. You're not the worst of the worst. You're not the best of the best. You're probably not even close to being the best at anything. Just except maybe like freebasing or some shit. You know what I mean? I don't know what kind of skills you got, but like, we're all just people that are just trying to get better, right? And like, forgiveness and love is throughout the whole entire sponsorship process. But at some point, like, the buck stops with you. Like, you still got to put pen to paper. And when pen gets to paper, the paper just ends up being filled, by the way. And you can't really explain it. Before you know it, 4 hours have gone by and you're like, wasn't I just afraid about this a second ago? Like, how did all this happen? But it always ends up, I mean, it's great. You know what I mean? And I've done more than one fourth step. You continue to do fourth steps and step 10 throughout the rest of your life. And yeah, man, just do it.
Yeah, just one thing that intellectually doesn't make it easier for anybody, but for me it turns out it's true. Right? This is not a comforting statement. All of the biggest steps that I've taken in recovery, I've never felt ready for. Not once.
Yes. Yeah.
Never felt ready for.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Like, you know, and that's inside and outside the rooms, man. Inside and outside the steps.
If
like,
you wait until you're ready, you're never going to do it.
The opportunity's gone and the willingness is not there. You know, so like there's something to just writing and just believing that what's on your brain and on your heart is going to hit the paper and letting all that other fucking noise and fear. Because I think there's a lot to what you said about like, what if I miss something and it kills me? Right? I just think, dude, like you probably won't feel ready, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah. Get down the big shit, talk about it. If anything pops up, just talk about it again later. You know, but let's get going, dude, because like there's experiences to be had. And that's what I told the guy at our home group. He had what, like 139 pages. He said something like that. And not knocking him, you know what I mean? That's what he did. But that's what I said to him. I mean, we were all in the kitchen and I was just like, my best advice is stop. As I was getting coffee, I remember it like it was yesterday. I just said, you want to know my advice? Just stop writing. Just go talk about whatever you have. Go back later. Like, there's more freedom to be had. And you know what I mean? And as you get more free, those things that you thought were supposed to be on the list, maybe they just work themselves out in your mind and you don't even need to write them down. But like, don't rob yourself of future growth. Like, you're going to die here on this notebook. Like, you will. Like, I've seen that happen. But yeah, dude, tonight is the home opener for your Philadelphia Flyers. Can I count on you?
I'll be at a wedding. When's the next one?
You'll be at a wedding. When's the wedding over?
10 o'clock tonight.
Ooh, you better find a monitor, dude. I'll send you my NBC Sports Philadelphia login. You can watch it while you're there and just find a corner, isolate yourself, turn the chair to face the wall.
So what you're telling me to do is go into my comfort zone.
I want you to do what I say.
Do you know how much I would enjoy not dancing, not mingling, sitting in the fucking corner and watching the Flyers?
Until you're done doing it. You're like, what a piece of
Where's
shit.
Nick? Oh, he's watching TV.
Yeah,
What?
he's over there brooding in his own shit because he thought it would be fun. Next one's Tuesday, I think.
I will watch that one.
Okay.
Shake on it right
Yeah,
now.
very good.
Whole game? Ugh.
Yeah, we'll start
One whole quarter.
one whole quarter.
One
Yeah, there's
whole
three.
quarter.
There's 3 periods, but
All right.
yeah,
Sorry.
We'll
One
keep-
whole period.
we'll get the jargon down. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah,
Have
thanks
fun
for
at the
having
wedding.
me, dude.
And God bless you. We love you, and we hope you heard something that helps you.